everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Ask Amber, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to set up your avatar descriptor completely and also how to add GoLoco to your avatar. So let's get started. In the previous video, we set up our FBX to be completely ready to go. We haven't worked on materials yet or anything like that. And before we do that, we're going to go ahead and set up our avatar descriptor just so that it's ready to go. So in the last video, we already added our avatar descriptor and we set up the view position. And now we're going to set up lip sync, which is your Visemes. So this basically means that when you talk, your avatar's mouth moves. In our Blender series, I showed you how to set up the Visemes within Blender so that they all work perfectly within Unity. So now we're just going to go to our lip sync tab and we're going to click on this button auto detect, and that will find our body within our model that we have in our hierarchy, and it's going to automatically add all of the Visemes that are there. Now if there are any missing here at all, your avatar will not work properly, so just make sure that they're all there. They almost always are, especially if you're using a well-made head and you set up your Visemes correctly in Blender. So all of mine seem to be here. That's great. That's all I needed to do. One click, easy peasy. So now we're going to set up our eye look. So this will make sure that your eyes move around, they look up and down. We also set up our eye look in Blender, so if you set it all up correctly, this should also be very easy. So just try and disregard that the materials look a little bit funny. We're going to be coming back around to those, but right now we're just going to ignore that and we're going to go straight to enable the eye look. So under general, you can choose your eye movements, whether you want calm or excited, shy or confident. This is basically just like how much and how often your eyes move. I like to have my eyes move a lot because I like a really animated face, so I always turn them all the way up, but you can definitely just leave them at the halfway point if you like, because that's a pretty generic way to move your eyes and they still will move, so you don't need to worry about that. So now we're going to work on the transforms. This is which ways your eyes move. So I'm going to go ahead and choose my eye bones. So I'm just going to type in I, and I'm going to select IL for the left eye bone, and I'm going to choose IR for the right eye bone. And to make sure that you're choosing the right bone, because there's also a left eye and a right eye. And just to make sure that you did it correctly, you can preview looking straight, and if they look exactly the same, then you did it correctly. So then I want to look up, and I'm just going to try a couple of different numbers until I find what I like. So X should be a negative number so that it looks upwards, and I think negative 15 is great, and then I'm going to do X at 15 to look down, and that doesn't quite look like enough, so I'm just going to go ahead and bump that up a little bit to 20, and she's looking down. That's perfect. I can click return and it'll put it back in place. And then looking left, you want to use the Y values, so I'm going to try negative 20 on this one, and that looks pretty good, and then I'm going to do 20 on looking right, and that looks pretty good as well. So now that I have all of my rotation states and my transforms correct, I can just toggle those up. And then we're going to do eyelids, and this is for how she blinks. So I'm going to go ahead and choose blend shapes because my blink animation is in my blend shapes. So then it's going to ask where my eyelids mesh are, and I combined my head mesh and my body mesh together, so my head mesh is on my body mesh. If you have decided to keep your head mesh separate, you would put your head mesh in here. Whatever mesh your eyes are attached to is what you're going to want to put on the eyelids mesh. So then I'm going to just toggle this down, and I'm going to find blink, and that'll preview that. That looks great. I'm going to go ahead and return, and then it's asking for looking up and looking down. If your model doesn't have these, you can just click none. My model does have them, so I'm going to go ahead and choose looking up and looking down. And you can preview what they look like. It'll actually put your eye rotation states in the right position as well, so you can see what it looks like when you look up and when you look down. So it just adds a little bit extra. You definitely don't need to put these in here. If you don't have the blend shapes already, it's not a big deal at all, but a lot of heads come with these, so you might as well add them because it does give a little bit extra oomph to your model in the game. And that's pretty much it for your eye movements. So I can just toggle that back up. Those are all done. And like I said in the previous video, you definitely want to save after every big change that you make, because otherwise you're going to have to redo it all over if it crashes or if it closes or anything like that. You just want to make sure that it is saved. So the next thing down in your descriptor is your playable layers. And I'm going to just go ahead and click customize right here. And as you can see, it has all of the defaults for your avatar right now. You could technically upload this avatar and it would walk and talk and blink and do all the things that you normally would do. But a lot of times you want to add extra things to your avatar and have it do a lot more. So you're going to want to have a lot of these filled out. Now, a lot of these are going to be filled with GoLoco, which we're going to go over in just a minute, but I just wanted to show you this is where all of your animations are going to be triggered. But we don't have any animations or animators correctly set up yet, so let's go ahead and do that first, and we will come back to this. So in previous videos, we already set up our descriptor files folder, and we already have GoLoco in here, and we also have the hand gestures that we've downloaded right in here. And so basically what we're going to want to do is organize this into more subfolders. And I know it's a lot of folders, but trust me, when you make a lot of avatars, you want your folder system to be clean. So we're going to have a couple of different folders we're going to make in here. The first folder I'm going to make is animations. And because our hand gestures technically are an animation, we're going to put that right in there. I'm going to leave GoGo as it is. It can just chill right there. And then I'm going to create another folder. And this is going to have all of my menus and parameters. So basically, if there's a menu that you want to create, it's going to go in this folder. So because we don't have any menus yet, we're just going to leave that as is. And I'm going to create one more folder, and I'm going to call this one controllers. So this is going to be where we're going to put our FX layer, gesture layer, different things like that. A lot of our layers, like I said, are going to be in our GoLoco folder, so we can just leave that as is, but we are going to create a custom FX layer and different things like that, so we want a folder for all of those to go in. Now, if you're confused what I mean by layers, I do have an older video on my channel that still holds up to this day, all about what the expression layers are, what they mean, what they do. So if you're interested, you can go ahead and check that out. I made it when Avatars 3.0 first came out, and it's still valid. All the information is still the same. So if you want to find out a little bit more about that and go into detail, you can go ahead and check that video out. With that being said, let's go ahead and fill these folders up with some correct stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my menus and parameters, and we're going to create our menu and parameter. So I'm going to go to create VRChat avatars, and we're going to create our expressions parameters. And I'm just going to call this parameters. And this is going to be what we put in our avatar descriptor that basically tells our avatar what to do with the animations. So this is one of the most important things that you can have, so you definitely want to have this created. Then I'm going to go ahead and create a VRChat avatar menu. So this is going to be our top layer menu. This is going to be the menu that we see the moment that we open up our expressions menu. So that little small circle that you open up on your avatar in game, this is going to be the first page of that expressions menu. So this is going to be my top layer, and then I'm going to have subfolders underneath it that have other layers as well. And we're going to go ahead and create those right now. So I'm going to look at what kind of toggles I want on my avatar. And on here, I have quite a bit of clothes and accessories, so I definitely want one for clothing. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this, Control C and then Control V, and I'm going to rename this clothing, and then I'm just going to paste again, and I'm going to name this one accessories. And just like I did with my menu system, I like my top layer menu to be first, so I'm just going to go ahead and add a little exclamation point right in front of that so that it's going to be the first one in the list at all times. So that way if I have to go back to my top layer menu, I can find it really easily. So I know that I have accessories and I have clothing, but I know that I want some other stuff on this model. So I know that I'm going to want a few things, like I'm going to want to change the eye color, I'm going to want to change the skin color, I'm going to do some stuff with tattoos. So I'm just going to make a new menu called modifications, and I'm going to put all of my body modifications and color modifications in this folder. Then, because I plan on putting some NSFW features on this model, I'm going to go ahead and create another menu, and I'm going to call this one NSFW. And you don't actually have to create all of your folders now. I just like to have them all ready to go as I start so that I don't have to worry about organization later. It's just easier for me to do them right at the beginning. So now that I have all of my menus created, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my top layer menu. And if you've ever looked at your menu systems before in VRChat, if this is not your first time in Unity, you can see that because I used the Dread Scripts plugin in the VCC, that my menu system looks a little bit different, and it's so much better. You have a forward and a back button. You can copy and paste other parameters in here. You have a very large section for icons, and it's just so much easier to use. It just makes it look different. It doesn't actually change any functionality in game, but I just prefer this so much. And if you can see, my hierarchy actually looks a bit different too, because if I were to go into my hierarchy on a regular model without the Descriptor plugin, I would have to go into, like, let's say I wanted to change these pants and turn them off so that I could see something. I would go into my sweats, and then I would have to click this button to turn them off and turn them back on. But with this plugin, I just have to click this little box and it will do the same exact thing. So I don't actually have to click in and then click again, which makes it really, really convenient. I really love these two plugins. So I'm going to go to my top layer menu, and I'm going to click this little plus icon to add a new control. And I'm just going to add all of my menus into this top layer menus as submenus. So I'm going to go ahead and click accessories. You can change the color of the text if you want. I'm just gonna leave mine for white, but you can change the color, and as you can see, it'll add the color code right into it. So I'm gonna go ahead and change this back. So that's gonna be white. This is where you add your icon. I'm gonna do all of my icons at the end. So I'm not gonna add any icons right now because I'm just basically getting my generic system in place. I'm going to change the type of this to be a submenu, and I'm going to drag my accessory submenu right here where this submenu section is. And I'm going to do that for the rest. I'm going to do that for my clothing, my modifications, and my NSFW. Okay, so now that my top layer menu is all set up, I have these submenus in here, and once you are in your actual menu, once you click on the accessories, it will go into your accessory submenu, which for now is empty. That's totally fine. I just wanted to make sure that my top layer menu was all set up perfectly with all of my submenus added. Now I'm going to go back to my descriptor files, and we're going to work a little bit on our controllers. So this is obviously empty, but what I like to keep in my controllers folder is my FX layer and also my gesture layer, because I like to have control over both of those because those are the ones that I edit. All of the other layers in my avatar descriptor, I just use the generic GoLoco, so I'm not going to worry about those ones. But what I'm going to do for these controllers is I'm going to go into the GoLoco folder. I'm going to click again on the other GoLoco, and there's a lot of folders in here, but what we want to do is go into the controllers WD. Now WD stands for write defaults, and a lot of people say put on or off all of your write defaults. I like to keep all of my write defaults on for every animation, but even if I don't have all of my write defaults on, I'm not too worried about it. I'm going to use a component of VRC Fury to automatically detect all of my write defaults and fix it upon upload. So I'm just going to use the WD. If anything that I have that I'm adding to this avatar has write defaults, I'm going to go ahead and use write defaults for everything. So I'm going to double click on the controller's write defaults. And as you can see, you have layers that you can add to your avatar descriptor. Now we're going to do that in just a minute, but for right now, I want to take my GoLoco gestures layer, and what I want to do is I want to find over here on the left-hand side my controllers folder that I created. It should be right here under descriptor files, and I'm just going to move this into my controllers folder so that I have easier access to this. And the reason I'm going to do this is because I'm actually going to be making edits to this, so all the ones that I'm going to edit are going to be in here. But in order to do that, I also have to have my FX layer in here. So to create a brand new FX layer, I am actually going to find the default one from VRChat. So basically, I'm going to scroll down on this left-hand side to where my packages are, and I'm going to scroll all the way down to the VRChat SDK-avatars folder. I'm going to click on that, and that will bring up my VRChat SDK avatars. I'm going to go into samples. I'm going to go into AV3 demo. These are the demo assets. So basically these are like your basic assets that you would use if you weren't making any changes. I'm going to click on animation, and then I'm going to click on controllers. And now these are all the default controllers that you would use if you were not going to make any edits whatsoever. And as you can see, there is not an FX layer in here. And just to see the titles a little bit better, I'm going to hold down Control, and I'm going to scroll down with my mouse scroll wheel until these are all a little bit smaller so I can see what's going on and see the entire title. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this hands layer right here, and I'm going to use the hands layer as my FX layer. And this is because I want to add facial expressions to my avatar, and this is already set up for the hands perfectly. And so I'm just going to change a few things in here so that it works with my faces, and then add the rest of the things on. And I know that sounds very confusing, but I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. So go ahead and click this layer and then copy that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll all the way back up to the controllers layer that I just made and use my control to scroll so that the icons are a little bit bigger, because I prefer to see them this way in general. And I'm going to paste that hands layer in here. I'm actually going to call this AAFX because first of all, I'm Ask Amber, and second of all, AA is the beginning of the alphabet, so if I'm ever searching for this, it'll be at the top, which makes it very easy. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on AAFX, and we're going to set this up to be an FX layer. So in the parameters, you don't need to change anything in here, but you're going to go to your layers, and I'm going to change this to be left hand faces, and I'm going to change this one to be right hand faces. And the good thing about this is if you have this set up already, you can copy these already set up layers, your animation and controllers, you can copy them into multiple projects. So you really only have to set this up one time, and you can use this and just edit this for your continuing models. So I actually haven't set this up from scratch in a very long time because I usually just take the FX layers and the gesture layers and take elements from those and put them onto new models so that I don't have to do every single thing from scratch every single time. This just makes my workflow a lot easier and faster. So now what we want to do in order to convert this from just the hands to having facial expressions is I'm going to go ahead and click this little button right here, and where it says mask, it says VRC hands only. That means this is only going to apply to the hands, but because we want to apply it to the face, we're just going to change this to none. And we're going to do that for all three layers. The all parts menu should be completely empty, so don't worry about that. When you go to left hand faces, what you're going to want to do is select all of these right here. You're going to change right defaults to on, and you're going to remove the motion time parameter. So take that right off. And now all of those should be the same with motion time off and right defaults on. And I'm going to do the same thing to my other one. I'm going to turn on right defaults and turn off the parameter of motion time. So the last thing you're going to want to do is you're going to click on each one of these individually, and you're going to remove the animation that's already on there. So you can just select none for all of these and make sure that they are all set to none. And you're going to want to make sure that this is for both the left and the right hand faces. Make sure that you also take out the motion for the idle as well. You want that to also be none on both hands. Now you're ready to add your faces to each one of these. So when you make a fist, whatever animation you put in this motion area is going to trigger when you make a fist. So really quickly, I'm going to show you how to make some animations for your face. Whenever I'm working with animations, I always make a duplicate of my model just in case the animation messes it up. I always have a backup. And then because this is a duplicate, I'm going to be deleting it later. I'm perfectly fine with adding a controller into the animator right here. So I'm going to add my FX layer that I just had right here, which at the moment has no animations on it, so it will be completely empty. But now I can drag out my animations window, which we went over in a previous video. I like to have it right here, just have it easily dragged out, makes it a lot more clean and simple for when I want to make animations. And so because I don't have any animations on here yet, I'm going to click create. But right here where it says no clip, it's grayed out at the moment. But if I had other animations in my FX layer, they would be right here, and I can edit them in this window if I have to edit something in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and create, and it's going to ask me where I want this animation to live. Now, because I made my animations folder, I'm going to go right into this animation folder. I'm going to create a new subfolder in there that's called faces. I'm going to open up that folder, and this is where that animation is going to live. And I want to do a happy face. And then I'm just going to go ahead and click save. Now I have my happy face and I can animate this. And once this is animated, this will be a perfect thing to add into my face gestures. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click preview just so that I have it set up in the right area, and I'm going to get her face fully in view. Now in my Blender series, I showed you how to mix shape keys and make different things like that. So I'm actually going to use some of the shape keys that I made, and I'm going to show you easily how to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and toggle down my tutorial model 1, which this is the duplicate. I'm going to click on body. And when you click on body, you'll see all the materials that are attached to that. We'll worry about that later. But right here, blend shapes is what you're going to want to toggle down. And you'll see all the blend shapes on your whole entire body, which is just perfect. So as you can see, here is the blend shape that I made in Blender. It's the amber happy face. So what I'm going to do, super easy, I'm just going to click record and I'm going to turn this all the way up and then I'm going to stop recording. And that's it. So now my happy face is done and that's the entire animation. If I want to make a new animation, I'm going to create a new clip. It's going to ask me again where I want to save it. I want to save it in that same faces folder and I'm going to say mad face. Then I'm going to click record once again and I still have all of my blend shapes open. So I'm going to go ahead and select the ones that I want. There are some that come with this face already, so I'm just going to go ahead and go angry all. And you can mix different ones together. You can have more than one, you can do different things all at once, but it makes it really convenient that some of these preset facials are already here, which is really great. And I'm going to do this for however many faces I want. Remember, there's only a few hand gestures, so keep that in mind when you're making a lot of different facial expressions. I'm just going to make 4. Now that I'm done with that, I can just delete this entire duplicate model, turn on the original model. She's back normal, looking just fine. And now I'm going to go back into my FX layer. And you can do different expressions for different hands, but just remember, if you do a fist on both hands, it's going to mix those two together. So if you have like a happy face and a mad face, both on fist, one for left, one for right, it's going to try and mix them together. So I highly recommend just putting the same animations on both hands. For my fist, because when I'm in game, I usually have my fist on a lot. That's kind of the resting position for my hands. I'm going to leave that empty. When you leave it empty, it doesn't make any faces. It just does the regular standard face that you would anyways. For open hand, I'm going to do my happy face. For point, I'm going to do my ubu face. For peace, I'm going to do my happy face again. For rock and roll, I usually change that gesture to the middle finger. So I usually like to have my mad face on my rock and roll. For gun, I'm going to do the blep face. And then for thumbs up, I'm going to do, let's just do the ubu face again. And then I'm just going to do the same exact set for the right hand faces. Now that those are all done, we are ready to go and our faces are all set up in our FX layer. Now to add my custom hand animations, I'm going to go back into my controllers and I'm going to go to the GoLoco gesture layer. And I'm going to leave the additive layers alone. I'm not going to touch those at all, but I'm going to go into the left hand and I'm going to double click on this orange box right here and that will open up this whole entire menu right here. So if you look, you can see that the fist has the regular fist animation, open animation, all of these, and you can just change these out to the ones that I have given you to download. If you choose, you are more than welcome to leave all of these here as is, no problem whatsoever. So I'm going to go into my AA hand gestures in my animations, and on my left hand, I'm going to put fist left and then open left, and I'm just going to match up all of these on the left hand, and then I'm going to do the same on the right hand. So now that I've done that, this is all ready to go, and it has my custom hands and my custom face for whenever I want to do a gesture, it'll do exactly what I want. Now remember, these hand gestures will not work when you're using an index controller because those will read your hand movements. So these are just for all the other types of controllers that would use the default movements. You're basically just editing this. So if you are an index only user and you want to make this just for yourself, you don't even have to worry about this. You can just use the default gesture layer from GoLoco without editing any of these. So now back in my scene, I have my controllers set up. So I have my base FX layer and I have my gestures layer from GoLoco. So now it's time to add these layers to my avatar descriptor. So I'm going to click on my model where my avatar descriptor is, and in these playable layers, I'm just going to add my GoLoco. And remember how I'm using right defaults for everything. So I want to use the WD version. So I'm going to go ahead and click in here and I'm going to slide this down so I see a list instead of icons. And I'm going to find my GoLoco base. So I'm going to use this one, GoLoco base WD, add that there. For my additive, I'm going to use GoLoco additive WD. For gesture, I'm just going to drag this gesture one on here. This is the one that I've edited. For action, I'm going to use the GoLoco action with WD. And then for my effects layer, I'm going to go ahead and drag my personal effects layer on here. And then for sitting, I'm going to choose GoLoco sitting WD. And then for T-pose, I'm going to choose the T-pose WD from GoLoco. I'm going to leave the IK pose blank. I'm not going to put anything in there. But now I have all of my layers set up with GoLoco. Now, these are not going to work right away because in order for your avatar to read these, it needs to have parameters that match each of these. So we're going to have to add the parameters for GoLoco into our parameters that we created, which currently is empty. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So I'm going to go down to this expressions area and I'm going to click customize. And what I'm going to do is in my avatar descriptor file, in my menu and parameters, I'm going to go ahead and drag my parameters down to the parameters section. This is the one that we just created that's empty. And I'm going to drag my top layer menu into the menu. So this is the menu that's going to show up on this avatar, and this is the parameters that's going to tell all of these layers what to do. And remember, I want to save my model as often as possible, so I'm going to go ahead and save her just like that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to merge some layers together so that the GoLoco is going to work for everything. You're going to want to go to VR Labs and Avatars 3.0 Manager. Now remember, you added this in the VCC when you first were setting up Unity, so it should be here ready to go. You're just going to drag your tutorial model into this avatar section or whatever your model is named. Then you're going to go down here, and first we're going to merge the GoLoco effects layer with our regular effects. So I'm going to click on Add Animator to merge. This is the effects layer that's attached to this avatar. And I'm going to search for the GoLoco effects layer. So basically, I'm going to do the GoLoco FX Beyond with right default on. So I'm going to double click that. And once that's all in there, you just click merge on current. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my parameters. I don't have any parameters in here yet because I haven't added any. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy my GoLoco parameters onto this. Now, you could just put your GoLoco parameters in here, but we're going to add a lot more parameters to our base parameters. So I'm just going to merge the GoLoco ones onto our base parameters. So I'm going to select the Go Beyond parameters, and then I'm going to say copy parameters on there. And now all of these parameters are in my original parameters file attached to my avatar. And then when you exit out of here, you can go back into your animator and go into your controllers, go into your FX layer. Then you have these three new additions to your FX layer that are ready to go for your FX layer. And then if I look in parameters, as you can see, it added a bunch of parameters to my layers. And if I look in my parameters now, you can see here are all of my parameters right here. And these are all for GoLoco. So I can go back to my scene, I can go back to my model, and my parameters now have the GoLoco everything added. I have my facial expressions added to FX. I have my custom hand gestures added to my gestures layer, and all the other GoLoco is added. So now she is completely ready to do all the poses. And here's the real magic of the situation. Once you have all of these things added into your descriptor, you can test it without going into VRChat. That's why we added this gesture manager right here. So I'm going to click on gesture manager and I'm going to enter play mode. Now this is why we test, because as you can see, her facial expression is not plain, and I'm going to show you how to fix that right now. So go into your effects layer, go into the layers part of it, and when you go into all parts, you'll see that sometimes the custom animations that you make all get added to this. So just delete those out of there. This should be completely empty. Go back to your regular scene, and now it should be fixed. Now before I go into play mode again, I did forget one thing, because sometimes I'm a little bit silly and I forget things just like everybody else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my top layer menu and I'm going to add one more submenu, and this is going to be my GoLoco submenu. And you can call this whatever you want, but change it to a submenu. And what you're going to want to do is choose the submenus. I'm just going to type in Go to find the menu that I want. If you do the Go All main menu, it's going to have like another layer down, and you don't want that. So you can do Go All menu, but I did all of my stuff as Go Beyond. So I'm just going to click on the Go Beyond menu, and that will be my submenu right here. And now I can test out my model. So I'm going to go to Gesture Manager. I'm going to enter play mode. And this is what your avatar is going to look like in VRChat. It is amazing. It's incredible. You can test everything you want right here. You can test out, first of all, your Visemes. So if you go into options and you go into states, you can check your Visemes. When you do this around, it'll show you if your mouth is working properly, which mine is. You can test your AFK state that comes with the GoLoco. That's what it's going to look like when you go AFK. You can test out your T-pose. that works just fine. But what we really want to test out is our actual GoLoco. So here is the GoLoco menu that we just set up. And as you can see, it's very familiar if you're used to GoLoco in VRChat. We can test out our seated poses. And there we go. All of it is working just perfectly fine. Anybody that's in half body can totally use this very easily and still feel like they're being immersed in the game. This is also a really great way to check clipping, because as I can see as I'm looking right now, the sweatpants are clipping right now, so I can easily take that back into Blender, which I've gone over in a previous video, and fix that up, which I definitely will be doing on my own, but it's a really good way to test if all of your stuff is working. To exit out of this, you just exit play mode, and then here you are back with your main avatar. So I know that that was a lot to go over in one video, and we haven't even gotten to the materials yet. It's really, really good idea to have facial expressions and your eyes and everything set up before you get too deep in the weeds of customizing your avatar, because if something like this goes wrong, you definitely don't want to find out at the end after you've done all the customizations to your model. Because even if you have all of your menus set up and all of your parameters and everything, and you have to delete your model out of here and put it back as a different model or anything that you want, it will still work. All of your menus and everything will still be saved, and your FX layer will still be saved. You can just make sure that all of this is set up before you go into the deep customization of your model, because you don't want to have that mess up at the very end. So even though it feels like a lot before you get to the fun stuff, which in my opinion, the fun stuff is doing all of the shaders and animations for cool things on your actual avatar, make sure you do all of your descriptor files first and all of your controllers, and make sure that they work, test them out with Gesture Manager, and then do the fun stuff later, because you definitely don't want to do it out of order. Thank you so much for sticking around. I will be continuing this series in the next video where we will go over a lot more things. So stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all, and I'll see you in the next one.